Are we set, Renee?
We are ready to go.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Mark Indermauer. I'm the chair of, or one of the co-chairs of the Chess and Education Committee. Welcome to our annual joint outreach meeting. This is a joint meeting of the Chess and Education Committee and the Scholastic Council of U.S. Chess. I'm joined tonight by my co-chair, Christina Mullinax, and as well as the two leaders of the Scholastic Council, John Rockefeller, who's the chair, and Danny Rhodes, who's the vice chair. We're going to cover chess and education first, and then have a short period of Q&A after that. And then we'll move to the Scholastic Council and have another period of Q&A. So please go ahead and start asking questions in our chat as we go through, and then I'll moderate those questions as we get to the Q&A periods. With that, Christina, let me turn it over to you to take us through chess and education.
Okay, I believe everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, this is the joint meeting between the Chess and Education Committee and the Scholastic Outreach Council. I'm going to speak for Mark and I and what we've been doing in the Chess and Education Committee. As you can see, I've got a ton to go through, and I do want to just let you know that if there's any content in this that I go over and you don't quite catch it, it is our plan to send out this presentation at the end of this meeting, and it's got everything linked. So if there is anything you want to make sure you get, it will get sent out at the end. Real quick.
Hi, Christina, this is Mark. I can see you, but I cannot see the screen you're sharing.
Oh, it did not share. Well, that is super upsetting. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Perfect.
Now, perfect. Okay. Luckily, we didn't miss too much. So yeah, this is just the content of what we're going to go over today. As you see, the Chess and Education Committee has been very busy. Just a quick overview of what our committee is comprised of. There are several classroom teachers on here, several chess professionals, people involved at the state and national level with U.S. Chess and the state associations. So there's just a huge amount of experience. I know I've learned a ton from everyone on this committee, and it's been such a pleasure. All of these people are such great resources. There is a link up here. If you get this presentation, you can go read bios and get contact information if you want to reach out to anyone about their experiences and getting advice. A quick overview of one of our big topics from last year was doing webinars. So here you see listed all the webinars that were done in the spring 2023 timeframe. Our focus during this timeframe was after-school chess programs, and we tapped so many different people to give us a wide breadth of experience on these. We had people who were chess professionals hosting programs in after schools, and classroom teachers that were doing it just through their local schools. So if you have any interest in going and rewatching any of these webinars, they are on YouTube, and each one of these is linked. And I'll include in the presentation a little bit more detail about what each webinar went over so that you can pick which ones you are interested in. They're about an hour long, so just so you're aware. Now we've kind of transitioned into this year's webinars, and we've had one so far that was with the St. Louis Richard Pointer, and then two doctors who are looking into research for chess. And then our very own Mark Indermauer is doing his own webinar in February. So a little bit about the St. Louis webinar that has already occurred. Richard Pointer led that and really just highlighted all the amazing things they're doing at St. Louis, the outreach they're doing with the local school system, how much impact they're having in that area, just their curriculum, their model, how much they're doing, and probably the most interesting part was their program evaluation and the research they're doing. One of the big things that chess is always looking for is the research and how that impacts education and student outcomes. So I think one of the really big things on that seminar or webinar was just how much research how much data they're generating and how much of an impact that's going to have on chess. But the really big surprise at the end of that webinar was they are planning on hosting the first St. Louis Chess Conference. Right now, the dates are set for October 24th through 26th of 2024. This is the current title, Educational and Social Impacts of Chess. They're hoping to attract people who are also doing research in chess, chess professionals and classroom teachers, and hoping to have programming and all of these things to help all of those people from all those different directions. They are planning on announcing more details in December, including what the presentations are going to look like and all that kind of stuff. So please stay tuned. If you have signed up for our newsletter, you will get that information as it becomes available. I know I've put my date on the calendar. I'm planning on being there, so I hope to meet all of you there as well. The next take we're doing on the webinars, though, is we're going to really try to focus on programs that are being taught during the school day. And our very own Mark Indemar is looking at getting a panel of people who are teaching chess within the school day as part of their everyday curriculum. Be this in a math class, be this in an enrichment program, but programs that are focusing on during the school day and not just after school programs. So he's hoping to have a really big panel where you can ask questions and they can go over just the challenges they've seen, how they've approached their principal with these ideas, and what they're using as a curriculum to both balance academic standards and chess. And we're hoping to have several more of these. So if someone in the audience is running any kind of chess education during the day, we'd love for you to reach out to us and let us know. Have you highlighted in one of our webinars? We can help you do that, but we really want to make sure we're getting out what everyone's doing, because I know there are so many people doing amazing things with chess, and we just want to make sure you're getting highlighted and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Another big thing is we have followed in the lead of the Scholastic Council and have started hosting meetups at all the national meetings. We were at several of the national events. Any event where one of the committee members was present, we held a small meeting where we again try to connect with teachers and other people who are running these chess programs. Upcoming at grade level nationals, I've got the date and the time and the room. So if you're going to be present at grade level nationals, we'd love to meet with you, connect, see what we can do to help you and your school, and really just make that network happen. While Chess and Education doesn't necessarily run these grants, we do want to make sure it's incumbent upon us to get this information out. There are 3 major grants that are really currently available from US Chess. The first one is the Outreach Program for Affiliate Serving. This is actually one that my school participates in. US Chess will give 16 free US Chess memberships that can be used for youth to any affiliate that is servicing a Title I school. So my club actually now doesn't have to worry about trying to get kids signed up for US Chess, because that is just another expense and another barrier. It's a really amazing program and helps remove that barrier for kids to play in their first rated tournament. It's been a huge success at my school. If it's something you're interested in, again, the link for the application will be in this presentation, or you can find it in the education box and the education tab and the grant section. With those memberships, you also get 8 chess sets. So that's also a really big thing, because 16 players, 8 chess sets, it just makes sense. The math does math there. The next one is the US Chess Trust, the Chess for Youth. This is another equipment program. So you can, again, get 10 boards for your program if you're hosting it or if you're supporting a Title I school. And the last one is the US Chess Travel Grant. This is again for Title I schools, but this is specifically for travel as it relates to national events. So if you are hoping to take kids to a national event, this would be a really great thing for you to go through. The application is again under the Education tab at US Chess, and the application closes on December 22nd at 6 p.m. Eastern. It is not a terribly long application. It shouldn't take too much, but it does need to be completed and submitted. And then, as it says, the selections will be announced If you are looking at going at any of the 3 big national events, please look into this because I think it's a really great opportunity. And if you are curious about data, here is just a quick overview of the number of kids that have been supported by the 2 Title I grants from US Chess and the locations. So again, there have been so many schools that have been affected and helped by this. So if it is something that you are interested in, and if you're having trouble with that application or not sure if you qualify, please reach out to Mark and I. We can help guide you through that process. I think these are really big things, and this is one of the ways we're going to help get chess out to kids who may not otherwise get that kind of opportunity. And then one other thing, because the Chess and Education Committee is so busy, this year we have also taken the initiative is to create a chess bundle for teachers. This bundle was developed by teachers so that it really helps work with what we thought teachers would need. We do have price breaks as they occur at the 4, 10, 20, and 40 size bundles. One of the things that all the teachers in the committee fought for was the drawstring bag. Ziploc bags do not last in a Scholastic setting. So I know I wish I had all these drawstring bags for my chess sets. Maybe they wouldn't get so messed up all the time. But this is available on the US Chess website. It is again linked in this presentation, or you can search for it and find it. And it has the beautiful chess program or Chess in Education logo on it. So, I mean, that right there is just worth everything to me. And then the last big thing that we've been working on, and we don't have a final product for this. It's something that's currently being developed and worked on by a subcommittee of the Chess and Education Committee, and that is a set of standards for chess. This came up in our discussions last year where we were working on developing a resource page that is currently hosted on the US Chess website, but we wanted a way to not only discuss but evaluate these programs. And honestly, even since then, we have seen so many places where US Chess having a set of standards for chess is just going to be beneficial and give us so much insight into what we're doing. And here I kind of have an example of how we're approaching the standard setup. So the standard here is calculating fair exchanges based on point value of pieces. That is your standard. Scope, teach the concept, for example, that capturing a pawn, which is 1 point, and losing a bishop, -3 points, leads to a negative value or 2. This just gives a teacher who may not have a huge background in chess kind of a better idea of what we're looking for. And then instructional practices just give you an idea of how could you teach this in a classroom setting or in an after-school program. One of the goals with these standards is that I should be able to handle to a teacher who doesn't have a huge background in tournament chess, and they should be able to use it not only to guide their own instruction, but to evaluate curriculum and see if it's teaching what they want to be teaching at any time, or if it's hitting the standards in any kind of sequence that makes sense for students, or that they could just read through it and get an idea of what the big concepts in tournament chess are. I think one of the big things that as a teacher that kind of lives in both worlds of both academics and chess is so many things I take for granted because I did play when I was younger and I have a background in tournament chess. That's a teacher coming in off not having that experience really just doesn't have an understanding of. So I think this will be a really valuable resource for both educators and US Chess. And as you see, we've been super busy, but Mark and I are always available for questions. And here is both of our contact information. Again, if you have any questions, any ideas, if you want to talk to us about an idea for a webinar you may have, or know somebody you think might be able to do a great webinar, please reach out to us. We are always open to the discussion and would love to hear from you.
So Christina, are we ready for some Q&A?
I think absolutely. If anyone has any questions for me.
All right, we did get a couple questions via email. And I think Veronica is on the call right now. So Veronica, please add in the chat if you want to elaborate on these questions. But she emailed some questions about standards for beginning, intermediate, and advanced learners, or for specific grade levels. She was asking about what's the expected growth for a beginner in a Scholastic program or the expectations for a first-year chess program held during the school day. And how can teachers see if a student is showing mastery of a skill? And I think you were just, I mean, the standards that your subcommittee is working on are meant to directly address those.
Absolutely. So I think one of the big things, and this comes, I've grown a lot here in the last couple of years. I teach high school, but I also am very involved in both a middle school and an elementary school program in my district. And I think that's just such a huge thing that grade band does play a huge role in standards. And after we get those standards set, I think that's something that subcommittee could really look into is how would those standards apply to different grade bands? Because I know like at the high school level, they usually come to me at least bare minimum knowing how to move pieces, whereas my elementary school teacher, she still makes sure they know how to move a knight correctly, and we sometimes struggle with that. So I think your grade band is going to have a huge impact on how quickly the students progress through those standards. As for mastery, I mean, gosh, that's such a hard idea. I hate to say it. I have my kids playing in tournament. I have my kids like they love numbers. I hate to say it, like, they see their rating, and that's one of the ways they judge their mastery is what is our rating right now. I host rated tournaments every Thursday. My kids play each other, and that's just a huge incentive for them. And that's how they kind of judge themselves on mastery.
Well, Christina, that was one of Veronica's follow-up questions was what do you believe to be the best data point to collect to demonstrate student growth, especially if you have limited access to online chess programs?
So one of the biggest things that has been a huge impact to my program is with the Title I affiliate grant, it's so easy for me to get all my students rated instantly. Like if I have a new kid show up, I'm not trying to balance, do I wait till the next tournament? All this kind of stuff. As soon as they show up, I have a voucher ready for them and they play in Thursday's tournament. I actually had a student join me Tuesday. He came to chess today. That was enough to prove to me, well, we're going to show up tomorrow. He will be playing his first rated game on Thursday with the rest of my students. So like that kind of access has just given me a huge thing. And then even though the official chess rating doesn't update except for like a 3-week delay, you can go in as soon as that tournament has been submitted, they see their new number, and it's just a huge thing for them.
All right. And there was someone else who I should have introduced at the beginning of this call, and that's Renee Bartlett, who was the chair of our committee and is now the U.S. Chess Director of Operations. So one of the questions we received is there data from U.S. Chess on girls participating in chess? So Renee, I don't know, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, U.S. Chess does monitor those who identify as female, and we're constantly running reports every month, seeing how our membership is represented.
Excellent, thank you. Christine, we have a new question. Are there resources specifically supporting after-school chess programs in libraries and other community organizations?
I actually love that you asked that. So that was one of Chess and Education's committee's first projects last year was we got together on the US Chess website. If you click the education tab, you will see the resources tab, and we have there outlined all the resources that the Chess and Education Committee has kind of filtered, looked through. Approved is a strong word, but at least they were resources that we have dealt with. Chess Steps, the Chess Kid program, all these big names. And I really think one of the big things is grade band there. What's going to work with the K-12 or with the K-5 or K-3s is not going to be as successful with the upper grades of high school. So we do have it broken down by grade band as well. So if you can't find what you're looking for, again, I encourage you to reach out to Mark and I. I won't in any way claim to be an expert, but I can guide you in some directions and at least kind of help you filter out what you might be looking for.
And I'll actually add a little bit to that because my wife and I run a nonprofit here in North Carolina, and one of the things we do is support chess clubs in libraries and other community organizations. And chess is an excellent program for those types of organizations because it's one of the few things that is intergenerational. And libraries, in particularly, like to have programs that attract, young children, teenagers, college students, parents, grandparents, retirees, and chess. Is one of those types of programs. And whenever you get a group together like that, there's usually someone who can teach others how to get started. So you don't even have to have a librarian who's comfortable as a chess teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I will say that's a big thing for teachers looking at this and feeling like you're insecure. Maybe you don't know everything. Honestly, at this point in the age of the internet, you would have to have a true like grandmaster in every classroom because there is so much available out there. I won't name names, but my kids are obsessed with every major chess streamer that you can name right now. I hear every meme, every joke, and those people are stronger players than me. We can still address, we can still discuss, and they obviously know that I am passionate about the game and can do all that. But don't feel intimidated that you're not a expert level player. You can still be a coach and a guide to these students as they go through their own chess progress.
All right, we did a question about the USCF chess coach certification, and I think Carol, you've already answered that. So we are still processing applications for that under the old program, and there's a concept of how we could, revitalize or update that program. That's being reviewed. Any other questions? And I should say we'll have more time for questions at the end as well. So if you think it's something else, put it in the chat and we'll try to address it. I think there was a little discussion. Dwayne Barber, who is on the call as well, published a really good guide to Scholastic chess. That's one of the things that we have linked in our resource section, and it looks like some of you have already been benefited. All right, I think we've gotten we've been able to cover pretty much all of the questions regarding chess and education. So, John, let's turn it over to you to take us through the Scholastic Council.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Well, I'll just do a brief overview of the Scholastic Committee and the Scholastic Council. So the Scholastic Committee is comprised of up to 35 members appointed by the Executive Board. And each member has a base in his or her local Scholastic community, and obviously is spread throughout the country. Please know that if you are interested in potentially joining, we do add new members each year. I'm going to just drop my email in, which I just did, and messaged everyone, so you have that. You can reach out to me there. And we're particularly looking for maybe one more member from the Northeast, which would be great. Then there's, of those 35 members, there 7 are elected for, by the way, it's not a whole lot of work, that committee. We really meet only once a year. There's some subcommittees that do a lot more work, some do less work. So it doesn't need to be a huge commitment, but it certainly can be if you want to. And then from those 35, 7 are elected to the Scholastic Council, which is a more intense level of service. We meet monthly and have other meetings as well, separate meetings with the Executive Board. And we oversee the Scholastic regulations for the Scholastic National Championships, which I'll spend the majority of my time talking about. So it's also, I will just say, it's really helpful. The Chess and Education Committee is there to take over that role because that way we can just focus on tournaments, tournaments that US Chess runs and bids out. I will also mention one other thing. So before I get into the nationals, we just started a new thing, which we started meeting with TDs beforehand. So over the years, we sometimes heard some complaints that, my child had an experience in one tournament that was different than from another. We're trying to streamline that. So we're trying to have all the TDs on the same page, so that a certain situation crops up in one Scholastic National Championship, it'll presumably be dealt with in the same way. I'm going to ask Danny to share his screen briefly, just so you have kind of a quick look at US Chess's webpage, or you can look up some Scholastic sections. And I'm going to not be seeing this. I'll just be reading from my agenda here. So there's a Scholastics tab in the side menu bar of US Chess's homepage. It'll lead you to a page, all about with Scholastic articles. Some of these will be updated over time, obviously. Then also one question we tend to get is, where do I find tournaments local to me? So not national championships, but local tournaments in Utah or Maryland or Texas, that kind of thing, local to you. What you do is you go to the homepage, then you click on the Play tab, and then you scroll down to upcoming tournaments. And that'll give you tournaments by state. And then there's a thing called the National Events Calendar. And those are the Scholastic National Championships run or bid out by US Chess. And I'll go in a little bit in the weeds on here on those for now. But the way to get to that is, again, the homepage, Play, that tab, and then the National Events Calendar. Just to give you a sense of the upcoming Scholastic National Championships. So December 15th through 17th, K-12 grade nationals in Orlando, Florida. That is a unique tournament nationally, because players may play only within their grade. So rating obviously matters for seeding purposes, but third graders only play third graders, regardless of the strength of play. Most nationals, however, are done differently than that. There are sections with levels. So then there's about a 5-month break, and then in April 5th to 7th will be the high school national in Baltimore, Maryland. And just to be clear, if it says high school national, you might think, oh, that's only for high school players. It's not. So for example, if you live in Baltimore or in Maryland or in Virginia, and you don't want to go to Chicago or Ohio or Atlanta, which I'll get to in a moment, and your kids are in third grade, or you're a coach and you have players in fourth grade, you can go to high school national. They might play against high school kids, but just so you know, that you can go. And that's an important thing to note. What's capped is skill level. So you would play within a certain range, not necessarily within a certain grade. So that's high school national. That's in April. Then a week later, all girls nationals is in Chicago, Illinois. And in the end of April, 26th to 28th, is elementary nationals. Obviously, if there's an elementary, high schoolers cannot play there. So you can go up K-12 for high school national, but K-6, no high schoolers may play there. And then May 10th to 12th is middle school national. And that is in Atlanta, Georgia. And for the most part, and then I'll get into super nationals in a moment, but I was a little specific by using sometimes the word nationals and singular national. So at middle school national, there is only one championship section. High school national is just the one. And at elementary school, there's several. So it's not just the one. There's not just a 6, 6th, 5th, 3rd, 1st. So there are multiple championship sections there. Now there's something I just want to put on your radar screen. This is for 2025. So not May of next year, but it's May 9th through 11th. This is 2025. A thing called Super Nationals. It's once every 4 years. US Chess combines the high school national, the elementary nationals, and the middle school national all together in one. And previous record, I think, was about 5,500 players. It's a lot of people get introduced to US Chess Nationals through this. I'll admit, that's how I experienced it with my kids. I never went to the yearly nationals. I only went to the super one. And we got the bug that way, and then started going to more of them. But it's going to be in Orlando, Florida. That is going to be a huge site and could accommodate a lot of players. So potentially might hit 6, 7, 8,000, that kind of thing. So just be aware if you are interested in a kind of a chess festival atmosphere, almost like the Olympics. That's Super Nationals for you in 2025. Do want to just say one thing, which is that tournaments are run one way locally. So at your school, you might run a certain tournament one way, and if maybe it's an unrated tournament and you're just casual games, then maybe you go to a local tournament, or maybe you go to a state championship and tournaments are run a certain way, and maybe TDs do a certain thing. So just please be mindful that there are different vibes and expectations among these various tournaments, and US Chess tries to set a standard of very kind of strict adherence to the rules and enforcement of the rules. So for one example, there are many, but the one that is most striking is the spectators are not allowed in the playing room while games are in progress. So some states won't do that, some will, but US Chess parents are not allowed the room. They're allowed to sit their child at the board, but once games begin, shortly before actually, parents are required to leave the room. And please note that there is a just lost my agenda. Here it is. Special K-1 section, and there's a special K-1 room, and parents can wait there, so they don't have to wait in the Skittles area. There's a thing. Skittles is the large area where parents and coaches and players, even when they're done with their games, they wait. It's usually just an incredibly large site, and it's often so. For example, sometimes it can be below the playing area. Sometimes it can be in a different part of the resort or the hotel. So you just need to kind of go find where that is. All right, and want to mention one other thing, which is one more part of the website that I'll ask Danny to scroll to and share with you. There's a thing called they're called the National State Invitationals. These are invitationals held at the U.S. Open, and a lot of states use their state championships as qualifiers for these tournaments. Not all do, but many do. So if you're interested in these tournaments, there's one player per state at these tournaments, and I'll go through them right quickly. I know it's not a Scholastic tournament, but I'll mention it. There's the Irwin, which is for seniors who are 50 years and older. Then there's the Denker, which is for high school players in grades 9 through 12. Then there's the Herring, which is a all-girls tournament. It's for K to 12. There's the Barber, it's middle school for grades 6 to 8. There's a Rockefeller for kids in elementary school, grades K to 5. And there will be, in the next few years, separate tournaments for K to 3 players and K to 1 players. So now with regard to Scholastic regulations, and there's no need, Danny, now to share screen. I'll just be going through this from the agenda. I had originally organized this as in terms of things that are standard to a tournament and then new changes. We made some fundamental changes this year, and so I think I'm just going to lead with the changes we made this year because they directly impact the kind of normal experience. But these should be changes that will apply in the future. We hope, at least. So very much new this year is that online registration will close at 11 a.m. on Thursday. That's different. So please know that it will shut down. There will not be an exception. So if you wait till Friday to register before the tournament, that's not going to happen. The other thing is players may not register on site at Chess Control for the main event. It's only online and shuts down Thursday 11 a.m. Players may be registered for side events such as Bug House, Blitz, Simul's, Family and Friends, that kind of thing. But what we're trying to do is use chess control as an area where people who either want to register for side events or have issues or problems that they want to talk through, play with problems with registration already, that kind of thing. That's where you go for chess control. Now, new this year is, and we're not going to go deeply in the weeds on this, but we have standardized the penalties for electronic devices. So if you want your player to have an electronic device in the room, it must be off and it must be face up. I recommend not bringing them into the room, but they are allowed. And then there are very specific penalties that are spelled out for all the variations of where something goes wrong, if the phone goes off for some reason, or if someone is found to be committing a fair play violation. All those penalties are now very clearly spelled out, with all the scenarios also spelled out. One other slightly new thing is the procedure is going to be the same, but it's now going to apply to all players, which is if a player has a question about checkmate or stalemate, it won't vary by section how TDs reply. They will have a standard reply that will apply for all players. And then new this year as well, all TDs will be have current safe sport, safe play certification. Okay, a few more things. There generally are players-only bathrooms at the Scholastic Nationals, and so please be aware of that. Players really should only use their electronic devices once they're outside the playing hall. Notation. So this is also something where, locally players of a certain age might not need to notate. At a state championship, maybe it's different. At Scholastic Nationals, the standard is that players are required to notate up to a certain age, and you can look and see what grade that is, what section that applies to. But one thing that is, if not unique to US Chess, is certainly rarely done, is that if you want to bring an electronic score sheet, something you write down the moves, but you do it digitally, electronically, or even if you want to use your own scorebook, US Chess does not allow that anymore. It's been the case for a couple of years. So you need to use a score sheet provided by US Chess. Of course, there are rare exceptions, but they must be pre-approved by the director of events. And let's see, one other thing is that we require that players notate, move before they notate. But there are variations and some minor exceptions to that for very young kids. You can look up specific rules for specific tournaments. In general, if you have a question at a Scholastic National Championship run by US Chess or organized by US Chess, and you have questions like what to do, the place to go is chess control. That's where you want to go. There are many US Chess employees, staff there who are intimately familiar with the inner workings of US Chess tournaments. They can help you with your questions. And that is my presentation. So I guess we can open to questions now. I will admit I did not look in the messages during my presentation. I was just reading.
Yeah, John, there were quite a few questions, but Danny's been answering them and providing links as people have been asking.
Good. I'm just catching up now. Then. Excellent. Thank you.
Mark, I will answer your question about the K1 score sheets. There will be the similar score sheet to last year. Most of the players have been using the regular score sheet and not the special one. I think that it's possible that in the future that will continue to be reviewed as CIE and Scholastic Council come together to make sure that we're providing the right notation sheets for specifically K1 players.
No, thank you. I thought those were really good last year. So. All right. Does anyone in the audience have questions for the Scholastic Council or for that matter for Chess and Education? We still have probably another 15 minutes or so.
Mark, I'll just jump in with one quick comment, which is that, just because it's a national championship doesn't mean you have to be an incredible chess player. There are actually sections, I should have mentioned this. There's an unrated section, right? So that literally, if this is your first tournament, you can play in a section against only players who are also unrated. So the US Chess tries to create a welcoming environment. So you don't need to be a super experienced player to compete here. You can just go have fun and play, and that it's a very welcoming environment.
John, is there a cutoff for when, like, if a student is going to play in an under 1,000 section or an under 1,200 section, when do they have to be under 1,200 or under 1,000?
There are specific rules about it. This is I think it starts the 12th to 5th. I have to look at it.
So, John, let me
wait, Danny, one second. But so it'll be the December. It's called the December supplement. So it's what your official rating is in December. And the way to think about the general rule with these things is what your unofficial rating was on the third Wednesday of the previous month is what your official rating will be in the following month. So what you are, I don't know exactly the date. So it's the 15th. So that makes today the 8th. So yeah, today, right? So today is the third Wednesday. Your unofficial rating as of today will be your official rating in December. Go ahead, Danny.
So for the spring nationals, it usually depends on when the tournament is held. If it is held before the 10th of the month, you will use the previous month. So that applies to the high school this year. So for the high school nationals, this is important. It's going to use the March supplement. What that means is that the ratings will lock in mid-February. So that means if you have an unrated player by that point, they may only be restricted to the unrated section. And that is an important thing that needs to be addressed. Okay, so when it comes to unrated players and players who have ratings mid-February, any player who enters a under section, meaning under 900, for example, there is a process by which these players' ratings are reviewed. So if a player has anything that might cause concern, the Scholastic Council representative and the chief TD work together to work through ratings concerns, including online ratings. Now, these are not chess.com ratings or lead chess ratings or ICC ratings. These are US Chess online ratings. And when they differ, then you have a ratings review process which occurs. That way, anyone who enters an undersection is supposed to enter the correct undersection to the best of our ability.
There was a question earlier about the girls' national tournament, and whether that was based on grades or age.
That one's separate. It's by age. So yeah, it's a good point. That was different. Under 8, I think, is the youngest section. Under 10, under 12.
John, that deadline is the player's birth date by the first of the year. So January 1st is the cutoff for that. So that is the key marker to know for all girls nationals. This is similar to World Youth and World Cadet and other international tournaments. It is usually held by the first of the year as to what age category, rather than grades that we're used to for the regular grade nationals and spring nationals.
John, every year there are a lot of new players who go to nationals. What kind of resources do you provide for them or for their parents?
New players. So the best thing to do is to go to, and so you're saying to a Scholastic National Championship, right?
Right.
Spend some time with the tournament page. So go to that national events page, look up the specific tournament that you're going to go to, and click on the hyperlinks. So study it. There's a page about tournament rules where a lot of it's not just purely rules. It's kind of there's a nice formatting. It's a welcoming kind of. There's a newsletter. So there's just a lot of resources. But the main thing is to go to the page and then click on the various hyperlinks and see where they lead you. And some things might be way too much in the weeds for new parents or new players. But there are a lot of resources there. So that is your real hub in terms of chess and chess club. That's a whole separate issue. But new to nationals, there actually is also, while you're there, there's always in fact, I see Jay Stallings is here. He often will talk about there's a new to nationals seminar that's run during the event.
So yeah, Danny provided a link to new to nationals PDF file. Okay.
And the Scholastic Committee also has a resources subcommittee. And this resources subcommittee is dedicated to updating the resources and to making sure that we're up to date on how the regulations are and how the tournaments are being held, and sort of giving a guide, providing information prior to every event.
And someone asked if there was a virtual, like a town hall meeting prior to the event.
Good point. Yeah, I completely forgot to mention that. Yes, there are town halls, 2 for the elementary, but the others is normally just 1. So thank you for that. I didn't mention that.
And we've got a big question here about encouraging high schoolers to come to nationals. They might be hesitant, maybe don't see it as a much value. I know there's some extremely strong players at high school nationals, but I think we've added more like under 1900 sections, so there's sections I think now at high schools for players of every ability level. But what kind of advice do you have for
I can address
teachers of high school?
Yeah, I can address that because at high school nationals, there's currently an under 1900 section, which was new as of 2016. There's also an under 1600, 1200, and 800. So last year, there were a lot of players on one of the teams that I have the privilege of coaching that were in the under 800 section, and they hadn't played in many tournaments at all, but they decided, okay, we'll go from New York to Washington, D.C. and play in the under 800 section. And they had a great time. So part of it is just encouraging the students to play maybe in 1 or 2 tournaments locally. If there's a high school tournament in your area, sometimes for high schoolers specifically, they have a harder time playing against elementary school students at their local events. So you want to try to find a tournament for them that is solely within their social framework as well. So that's what you're balancing so that they feel comfortable going to a tournament where they're not playing against first and second graders primarily and third graders.
I'll just throw in as well, there's some, getting back to Evan's question, there are also some side events. So this is not for everyone because not everyone gets there on Thursdays, but there are some quote unquote lower level stake tournaments. There's a blitz tournament, there's a bug house tournament. You could kind of just get your beak wet there and see if you like it. So there are ways to, now that it can be an intimidating experience because blitz, you can lose a lot of games very, very quickly, but at least if you do lose a lot of games, it'll be over more quickly too as well. There won't be as many players. So there's the Thursday is kind of it's a side event. It's an entire day of side events. That might be an idea where you could kind of pitch that to them so they're not just immediately, walking into the buzzsaw for round 1 of the first tournament on Friday evening. There's that Thursday introduction, but that does, of course, require you to miss school on Thursday as well. So it's not for everyone.
We did get a question for Christina, and Christina, I see you answered a little bit in the chat, and one of the teachers was asking about whether you use Chessable in your classes, and I'll actually mention that we had an excellent webinar on middle school and high school programs last year, and Brian Tillis, one of our committee members, was on that, and he's a big supporter of Chessable, and in that webinar discussed how he was leveraging Chessable with particularly with middle school students. But Christina, I'll let you answer as well. Oh, you're on mute, Christina.
I've had myself double muted. Sorry. I've actually used Chessable in the past. One of the big things I use now is on chess.com. They have the puzzle rush. That's one of the first assignments that they're supposed to do as soon as they get in. And it's just another data point that they can track. It's something that's very quick, very, they can see their number and they can see it grow really fast, or if they had a good day or a bad day. And it's just a fun thing for them to compare amongst themselves. I was also going to jump into the comment about how to motivate high school kids. I will say I'm kind of at an advantage or disadvantage, however you want to look at this. Most of my kids start playing in high school, so it hasn't like lost its shine or anything. And you can use the tournament. Don't get me wrong. I think that's great. But I think there's also that element of community that you should leverage when you're trying to get high schoolers to get involved in something like that. I know I was lucky when Super Nationals was just over in Nashville, which is a hop, skip, and jump for me. I was able to take a small group over there and, yes, they remember the chess. Yes, they remember the fun they had there. But there's also that sense of those kids bonded over that. They got to stay in a hotel room, which they treated like a sleepover. And just that community of, we were in a bus ride together. I take my chess kids in bus rides all together. I've heard so many like Pokemon stories, you name it. And just that community atmosphere. If you already have that, you can leverage that to get those kids there. Because they're going to have an amazing experience. They're going to bond, and it's just going to be something they remember. I know I remember my chances at going to national tournaments, and I remember the games, but I also just remember being there with the people I was friends with in high school.
Following up on Christina's point, actually, Bug House, which is the first side event,
Amen.
particularly good at this. Because what you do is you sign up, and sometimes you don't have a partner. So US Chess will pair you with somebody. So actually, I remember when I took my son to a couple of Super Nationals, and we saw his Bug House partner for 4 years past, and they remembered each other, which was amazing. The mom and I recognized each other. The kids kind of basically remembered each other. But it was just a fun way to to kind of meet and talk. And then the beautiful thing about Bug House, of course, is that you can talk with your partner, unlike the rest of chess. So it doubling down on Christina's point of literally community and socializing is the one time where you can actually socialize in the chess tournament.
And I know my students, gosh, Bug House, it's a banned word in my club until December, which just so happens to coincide with my birthday. So every year on my birthdays, the first day they're allowed to play Bug House. And that's how I make sure they always remember it and know it is a special day.
Hey, John, we got a question here. For the rating that is published, you look up a player, should that be the rating that is used in Scholastic tournaments as opposed to, well, I think what the person's asking about is the official supplement rating, the one that's updated once a month. Is that one that's used in nationals as opposed to the latest rating that's in their tournament history?
It's complicated. So it depends on when the tournament starts. So the way US Chess runs it is, if the tournament starts, I believe it's up to the 10th or the 11th and after. I actually can't remember if it's 10th is included or not.
Before the 10th of the month.
Before the 10th. So it's the 1st of the 9th. If it starts the 1st of the 9th, then it'll use the previous month's supplement. So I use the word supplement. Sometimes the best thing to do is just go, if a tournament starts on the 10th or after, it's what your unofficial rating was on the 3rd Wednesday of the previous month. But here's the thing. If a tournament starts on the 1st to the 9th, it's what your official rating was on the previous month, which means that's determined by your unofficial rating 2 months before. So the one thing to know is this: US Chess will, if there's an error and you register for a section that you're too good for, they will move you down just automatically. However, if you unfortunately make a mistake and register, and then you register for a section, a higher section, and you realize you could go to a lower section, there is a fee for changing that. So you really do kind of want to clarify this before. But I can see that there's someone here who's got a question. She has her hand raised. Unfortunately, I don't know if we can mute and unmute. I'll let you all. I think we can do that. She has, I will try, ask to unmute. How about that? Is that all right? I'll just, yeah, I'll do that.
Hey, everybody.
We go.
I'm sorry to belabor the point, but my question, I guess, is specific, like for, say, a tournament that's happening now, if a tournament is a series and say it started on November the 11th, I look up a player and their rating is 970. But in the tournament history, it's gonna go to 1051, say December 1st. Which rating am I would I be, what is the stated rating for like now if the tournament started, say, November the 11th? But it's gonna be a series of tournaments that will end in January.
So, Ursula, maybe I can help you with this. Are you talking
Mhm.
about a national event or just a
No,
local?
no, just a local. I mean, it's a Scholastic tournament, but it's a local. When they
So-
say use the stated rating, when you Google a kid, you put them in
Yeah.
and you see that rating there. You are not to use that rating or the one in the history,
So,
depending on
so
those dates you said.
so
Kenny, isn't
most
that
events,
typically up to the tournament director for that
It is.
specific event?
it is, but most large events, most state championships, most events like that will use a supplement rating. When you're talking about a club tournament or a local event, you can choose to use the live rating if you want, but that provides much more work on the tournament directors and organizers to set up the tournament because they have to constantly be reviewing the ratings every single day, every single week. So first use the supplement, and then sometimes there will be parents or kids who request to use their live rating or a peak rating or something along those lines because they made a peak rating, right? Or they want to move up in a section and they want to use a live rating to do those things. I think that those questions can be handled on a case by case basis.
Okay.
That way, the players feel like they have a way up, and encouraging players to move up in section when they're ready. So even if there are, let's say you have a 970 rated player and you know that they went up to 1050 and your options are play the under 1,000 section or play in the under 1,300 section. Maybe that player should play in the under 1,300 section just because, okay, let's see how you do and play in the next section up and then work your way up and down and go through that process. So I would say for the player's point of view and the coach's point of view, it's a work in progress. I think if you're a tournament director or organizer, you need to feel comfortable to make sure you know how to set proper rules for your tournament and post and advertise those rules. That way there's no confusion amongst anyone who's entering those tournaments.
And if you say supplement, it's generally taken as the one that you see when you first pull the name.
Yes, the monthly
Okay.
supplement. That is exactly it. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, okay, I'm
Ursula,
gonna,
thank you. That's an excellent question, and I think that's one that a lot of people have that question. There was one last question here, a follow-up from Veronica. She was asking, what's the best way to monitor students' progress, especially over an extended period of time? You know, Christina, well, I'll say I run a very large club. I had group students by ability, typically 20 students or so in a group. Currently have 7 groups, and I ask them to record the results of all their games every week, and I can kind of see if a student is starting to win most of the games in their group. You know, then they're definitely improving, and I can then move them up to the next group. I don't know, Christina, what kinds of ideas do you have?
I think this is actually going to tie into Ursula's question and this question. So I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of not rural, but I'm a lot more rural than some people. We don't have like tournaments every weekend, that kind of stuff. We usually are running maybe one a month if we're lucky. So when I'm looking for rated games, I do just within my own club, and within that own club, I use their most recent tournament result rating. So what can happen is, especially if I have a newer player who's provisional, they're kind of bouncing all the way up and down my chart as they kind of figure out where they're supposed to be. And I don't use the traditional Swiss pairing system on WinTD. I use 1, 2, 3, 4 pairing, which means my top 2 players play, my next 2 players play, my next 2 players play, updating their ratings with that new rating every week. This also gives them, like you were talking about, data tracking. It lets them see that most recent rating. If they do win a game, they go up. If they lose a game, they go down. You know, they kind of see that. And it makes sure that every week is not just a bloodbath in my club where my top 10 are destroying my bottom 10 every week and getting nothing out of it. The only bloodbath we see is when we have a couple of adults who come in and they play my top players. Sometimes that's a little rough, but besides that, so that kind of answers both questions. I use both tournament ratings just depending on what's more accurate at that moment, what I'm trying to get out of that tournament. And doing so many regularly rated games is really how I data track. I mean, I hate to say it, kids can say they're better, but win. I don't know what to tell you. If you're better than them, beat them. Show me.
Oh, I would add one quick thing,
Well-
which is my general recommendation for Scholastic National is actually to register for the absolute lowest section for which you qualify, because kids can go in thinking they're going to do well, and it can be very dispiriting when you go play a bunch of players who might be underrated and you thought you were going to win. So especially if this is your first nationals, it's overwhelming experience, just the sheer walking around and food and hotel room and a lot of kids don't do a whole lot of that travel. I would keep the chess part as simple as possible, and that would mean playing the weakest players you possibly can, because some of those might be really, really strong players. So I would strongly encourage unrated players not to register for the championship section. They can, but those are some extremely strong players who might have had private coaches for the last 10 years.
And kind of jumping off John Rockefeller's point, not even just for national events, even if you go to a local open, I don't let my students play in sections they don't belong in. I think there have been one or two exceptions, kind of what John was talking about with, high rated under 12 player. There's nothing else competitive in that section. If you really want to play up into that next section, okay, you'll get a better competition, but it's only been someone I've known needs to be up. If you're an 800 and trying to look me in the eye and say, I need to play in the open section, no, you don't. You need to play where you belong. And if you win out, then next time you don't play in that section. Like it can be very, very heartbreaking for a kid who thinks they're going to go beat up on some kids to get just loss after loss.
All right. I think just in the interest of time here, we'll close out the questions right now. I want to thank all of our participants. This has been a very lively webinar, lots of good questions. I especially want to thank our presenters. I think we covered a lot of good information. Folks are well prepared for the upcoming national events and have a good feeling for what the Chess and Education Committee are up to. Please subscribe to our email list. The links were earlier in the chat. I think we'll send out a follow-up email from this session. That way you'll know when there are upcoming events that you might be interested in. Please check out our website, and we'll keep that updated with the latest resources. So thank you all. And I think a few of us will stick around if anyone wants to ask questions, after we turn off the recording. So thank you again, everyone. And thank you to US Chess for organizing.
Actually, I'll just jump in, Ursula, just because I see you're about to go.